Happy Tuesday. Let me see my chat on. It is on. This week it is not like on the screen. I know what I did last week, but happy Tuesday and thanks for being here on Tuesday instead of a Friday. Now that I am full-time with you here, I thought we should just kick it off in the beginning of the week, not just wait till Friday. So, all right. I was reading this week something about taking risks and living your life to the fullest. That was part of Tuesdays with Maury. I don't know if anyone has seen that, but it's like that movie has just spread everywhere. It really did make a splash in the world, the lessons that you learned in that movie. Today's session, which is about navigating end of life care, and I am on module 5, where my death doula training is taking me to talk about the medical perspective of things, but also it is Women's Health Month, so I wanted to touch on that. Hi, my name is Michelle Trieste, in case you just came upon me recently, because like I said, I'm doing Tuesdays instead of Fridays. And I am a speaker and a workshop creator. I'm here to spread the awareness of just how early planning for the last ride of our lives can alleviate a lot of stress and confusion, so then we can have more of a legacy of peace, love, and respect. Now, looking again at this month's Women's Health Month, I wanted to make sure I address women's unique health needs, especially when it comes to her role in caregiving. And according to a 2020 report by the National Alliance of Caregiving and AARP, women constitute 61% of caregivers in the US. So they play a significant role in healthcare. In my death doula training, right now I'm getting trained by both men and women. And in particular, the module that I went through this week was shared. It was a doctor, a gentleman. And so Dr. Paul Siegel, he was our teacher for the month. But before we get into that, what that looks like, the medical aspect of things, I just wanted to remind you of the role of a death doula. Now, doulas for birth, when we're bringing souls into this world, or when it's time to exit, doulas are a practical and emotional and even spiritual support for someone if they want it. Now, it is a non-medical, non-licensed role. A doula is a companion, a champion that has your back, as well as someone to sit by the side of a dying one. Now, the different aspects of what we do, that may encompass working with the family and helping them process and be part of the whole process from pre-death, at the time of death, being there with your loved one, or post, kind of looking at the grief aspect and the stages of that as well. Now, there's nothing set in stone that a doula has to do all of these roles, whereas that's where we look at women and men, but in particular, we're going to look at women. It doesn't matter which role. We're all part of a lot of aspects of a doula. So that's why when we look at women's mental health and the stresses that come along with playing that part, it's very important that we do comprehend that and appreciate that, because women have long been the cornerstone of caregiving. in both families and community settings, whether that's the Girl Scouts or church, um, a lot of the thrift shops, a lot of the caring uh, places and roles in community. Women have had a large hand in that role. We typically do a lot of organizing, and but we need to make sure that we realize that there's a lot of stress that comes along with that. There's a recent study that I saw where it said 45% of female caregivers report a high level of stress, more than their male counterparts. And why? Why is this so? Because women have a dual burden. So we're balancing a lot. We're balancing caring for others, taking care of our families, work, and a lot of times we don't have enough support or R&R, sometimes some downtime. There's also society expects us to take on those roles first and foremost. Yes, things have changed. You have more men at home and helping out with the children, but that has evolved, but that's not everyone, as we know. So there's a lot of emotional just intensity for women. And then there's also where women don't even get acknowledged, which who people don't really think about it, but it is important to get acknowledged for what we do in the community and all the support that we give. And the last thing that we actually don't get enough of is because we don't get that support, we also don't get um, our voices heard because we think, oh, we're supposed to take on this role because we're women. So we tend to isolate and experience more health issues by doing that. So men, yes, they don't always share how they feel and when they're helping, but women, they have that double whammy where we feel like, oh, well, we're supposed to be doing this anyway. So don't complain. Like that's just our role. We should kind of suck it up and do it. So yeah, there's a lot to be said for just acknowledging each other and just kind of softening it up for someone, whether that's a man or a woman. And next thing I wanted to do was get into what are some of the stages for the end of life, as well as a little bit about the pain management. Let's see. So this week in my fifth module, we are on the fifth module of my death doula certification training, and that is on the medical perspective of things. So during the final stages of life, we take a look at a couple different things as a doula. We can, or we don't have to. We can look at the vigil, all right, and provide uh, a break for the family in those moments. The time coming up to the vigil, during the vigil, and then moving on to whatever next stage of the process that the individual wanted for themselves. So a doula can help the family guide them along whatever process that they wanted, and the family wants to be part of preparing that person. And that could be a matter of hours or days, depending on what it is they want. And as well as helping the family realize some of the signs and signals that their loved one are dying, and just be aware so they're not shocked. And that's why it's it's an unusual chapter, which is for the medical aspect of things. And one of the things that we look at is different types of timelines for illnesses. Okay, we have when someone suddenly dies, when someone has a terminal disease, someone has an organ failure. It's a catastrophic event. So that's why I always say planning ahead of time can help reduce the stress and the trauma, because we never know how much time we have. Um, and it also helps to ease the different stages and understand some of the different stages of grief, which again was touched upon in the chapter. We have denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and finally acceptance. Now, again, they are not in that order necessarily. They can be all over. You can revisit an emotion as well, which is pretty typical. And again, with different aspects, you're going to have different emotions. And even when it comes to spiritual triggers. So one person, well, everyone has a different experience, understanding of spirituality, and that the overarching of the whole experience of death. Some people have had a bad experience with religion, whereas some people have had beautiful experiences. And religion doesn't necessarily mean spirituality. It depends on the person's, experience and how they relate. Like some people relate to religion as um, things to check off and to do. You get this. If you do this, you get that. So there's an exchange. Whereas others look at religion like it's it's a great way to learn stories, analogies, and ways to connect your soul to um, to overarching um, stories. I probably handle that one in a whole nother talk, but yeah, they're not people. Some people don't look at them like they're literal. They're ways to help your soul to shift through different stories, learn different lessons. No different than I guess mythology is a way that we learn and we can um, process and appreciate something that maybe we could relate to. And yeah, so that's a whole nother topic. But when we do look at religion and spiritualities, it does bring up different kinds of emotions at different points in time. So it's important to know as a doula or a family member who is handling that aspect with someone with their death, their dying loved one, or an individual, someone in your community, could be your mentor that you're close to, anyone around you that you are helping out in a non-medical way, just to be aware of, and those range of emotions and also the emotions of doctors, professionals. Don't assume that just because someone is a doctor or professional that they are comfortable with all the, with the process. Some are like palliative doctors. They're more comfortable discussing end of life prognosis and just dealing with the emotions more than, just different professionals and that are around your loved ones and are helping out. I wanted to talk about some of the common symptoms and signs when we're looking at end of life, caring for our loved ones. And one of the signs to look for is their level of alertness. How weak are they? How is their breathing? Are they losing interest in food and liquids? Are they having a difficult time swallowing? Look at their skin. Is that changing? Are they, because they're maybe drinking less, they're having less urine. So these are all important things to look for when you're looking at the stages of imminent death. An act of dying. I was looking at as the hospice nurse Penny. I don't know if anyone has watched her Instagram. She's hilarious. She's cool. And if anyone has seen Nurse Penny, write Penny in the chat. And she's funny. And she actually will share a lot of pieces on not only some comedy, but some different aspects. And she has permission to show a lot of what that looks like in those in those active moments of death and dying. Let's see. So the early stage of active dying is when they're bedbound. They have lost an interest in eating and drinking. And then you'll notice some cognitive changes, like they're sleeping and they're starting to see things. The middle stage is when they've really, you've seen them really start to go downhill. And they mostly sleep. They'll have short moments where they're awake, but they're mostly sleeping. So at this point, they really are not hungry. They're not thirsty. You have to be very careful not to try to push that on them, because the food or liquid might go down and get into their lungs instead of their stomach. So if they are not wanting these things, you really shouldn't push them. You're not starving them. It's just that their body is not asking for it. Their body is not asking for fuel. And then comes the late stage. And this is where they might have a coma. They might go into a coma. They might have a little fever. They have a certain breathing. It's called the death rattle. And sometimes what you can do is you can help someone maybe turn them a little bit, so then the liquids in back of their throat shift a little bit, and you can help make them a little more comfortable. But it's normal to hear noises, regular breathing. And the last thing to keep an eye out for, when they're right to the end, is their skin. They have skin discoloration and change. And so don't be alarmed. This does happen, and then their skin gets cold to the touch. Again, if you're helping out with your dying person, you don't have to be there for every step of the way. Even for doulas, there's some doulas, they're there for earlier stages, for legacy planning and speaking with the dying loved one, or you, early in the stage, and just finding out what it is everyone wants, and how they want everything to look from early stages, middle, and then later stages, and post as well. Now, something they point out in the training is that there are kind of two roads to death. It's either the usual road, which is pretty, I don't know, black and white, but it's difficult to come to terms with, but at least everyone understands what's going on. And they've, on some level, accepted what's happening. But the other road is the rocky road, where someone's just really angry about what they're losing. And this also has to do with a lot of their past experiences. So they can have, very different outlooks. And it's hard when you have someone who's very angry that they're dying, and different ways to try to deal with it. But all we can do is try to provide a level of comfort, understanding, and watch for any pain that people are having. And that comes into some of the strategies for pain management, because you're offering pain medication. The doctor and nurses, they're the only ones that prescribe pain medications, and there's different types for different levels, but that's to help with the body's illness. That's to ease that pain. It's not that pain comes from actively you're dying, your body's dying. That's not painful. It's certain things that are happening in your body to shut down that may cause pain. And so there's different levels to address the pain. And that's something where you really want to stay in communication with someone. You don't want to wait till pain gets too bad. So let's say pain's like from a 1 to 10. You don't want to wait until someone gets in a pain level of 8 before you give them any medication. You want to keep when someone is like at 3 or 4, you're like, okay, let's get you something and address that. But no one's going to get addicted. So morphine, they're not going to get addicted to morphine. Even if they had a drug addiction earlier in their life, they're not going to. Hello, the doctor has confirmed that your loved one is dying. So you want to make sure that they have the least amount of pain and can breathe without suffering until their lungs stop, obviously. But you can have opioid. I can't even pronounce that. Opioids. Oh yeah, I gotta say it slow. And you have to just keep aware of the changes someone's going through, and then you may have to up the ante with, I can't even pronounce it, with like steroids. Steroids, antidepressants will help. And different things that can help. Steroids can help keep inflammations down, and antidepressants, of course, can help with someone's mood. Maybe someone's having a very difficult time. And going back to what I said earlier with women and men that are caregivers, there's a lot of stress to be present for that person. So if your loved one's having a really rough time, it's okay to tell the doctor, tell the nurses, and so then you could get some antidepressants for the loved one that's actually dying. Sometimes we don't want to kind of say that this person's having a hard time. They don't want to give them any more medications or give them anything else. So what they do is they say, oh, well, I'll just suck it up and deal with the hard time. But then we have to go on. And that can do a lot of damage to us. And again, this is, women's mental health as well as men's. But since most women are the caregivers, it's important for us to realize that it's okay to ask for medication for our loved ones to help them make that transition a little easier, and for us to be able to ride our next ride too, because we have to continue on. We have to continue taking care of a family, jobs, and caring for our community. So it's okay to help ease the ride of someone else. It's okay. Um, what else did I want to talk about? I think those are the big ones. And I'm not going to get too deep into the pain intervention, but you can find many types of, medical end of life, I want to say courses, but education from doctors. So if you really want to go into that, but I just wanted you to have an idea of what to look for, the changes in the body, the changes in the breathing, know that they're normal. Also to know that keeping an eye out for pain, levels of pain is important, and to not be shy about calling in the doctor, the nurse, to make sure that you have a professional that lets you know as a non-medical person to help out, and that they're not going to get addicted. Okay. I think those are big ones, because the minute we hear morphine in this, time, people think you're going to get addicted, and your loved one's not going to get addicted, right? It's really just to help them to ease what their body is shifting into. So when they have completely shifted and completed their last ride, all right, then the signs are the heart is not beating any longer, the skin is cold, obviously no breathing, their pupils stay fixed. So even if you flash a light, they're not going to change the size of their pupils. Their body color is going to be a little pale and look a little waxy. And what else? Oh, the muscles will relax. Now, this is something that you'd hear in movies. Rigor mortis. So about 4 to 6 hours after the muscles relax, then they will stiffen, which they call rigor mortis. And also when their muscles relax before they go into that, they could actually lose liquids, and they can, release stool and urine. So you want to make sure that you have something underneath the person. Their eyes can remain open, and their mouths will can fall open. And this was a strange one for me to learn, was you may hear trickling of fluids even after they've died. So within their body, I guess it's kind of like a hose. I guess it makes sense, right? When you at the end of the summer, you untwist the hose, and you're going to hear shifting of water inside. It makes sense. We're going to hear these noises. So, yeah, you're gonna hear these things. Now, one of the what I really liked during the course, they talked about different mechanisms that you're going to use when you're caring for the dying. And you also have to make sure that when you're caring for a dying person, that you consider different types of mechanisms that will trigger you, or even a professional. So if you don't stay aware of your feelings or what's triggering you, you can have different outcomes. Um, if you see it too much and you don't take a break, like I said earlier, we can develop a lot of stress and anxiety if we don't get, we don't get the breaks, we don't acknowledge how we're feeling, then sometimes the way we deal with the dying of a loved one and working with other people that are is sometimes people will just look at people like they're not human, and you don't want that. There's a balance between being compassionate and caring and keeping your boundaries. So you can be compassionate and loving, but you also can be aware and also always remember the humanity when you're caring for someone. Even when you're dealing with someone who's very angry about leaving this life, and they have maybe regrets or things that they didn't have closure on, which from what I've understood through this training is there isn't anyone who's never had or doesn't have some kind of regret or um, something that they feel like they miss doing, because there's never enough time, right? So you can't expect, as a doula or just caring for your loved one, to be able to resolve everything for them. You can't fix things for them. If someone would like something, for you to look up something or provide something, that you can do. But don't put that stress on yourself to think you're going to resolve issues or things that they never got to do in their life. That that's too big an expectation, and that's too big a stress for you to take that on for yourself. So give yourself a break and don't put yourself in that hard, difficult situation. Um, so always realize you're going to have people that get angry, live in denial. And sometimes the professionals that you're with, sometimes they have a very hard time dealing with these surroundings and environments too. So try to be aware of yourself as well as the professionals that are around you. Give them some grace. Because if you see maybe a professional, a doctor, is acting a little standoffish, like um, he's not handling this well, give him a little grace. Okay. Remember that everyone has things going on in their lives, including the professionals around a dying one. We just don't think about that because we're only feeling our own anger and frustration and grief. So just be aware, and if you need to, take that professional aside and have a conversation to say, "I've noticed this," or "I feel this, I sense that." And you can help that professional as a human to human person. Okay? So we need to keep our humanity within us and not grow and then in our numbness to each other. And keep humor. This was a enlightening aspect, was to keep humor in things. And as a death doula or someone who's caregiving for someone, even though it's a difficult time, it's a good thing to ask your person, what makes you laugh? What makes you happy? What music do you like? These are the lighter things and the good things that we can help I don't know, change, but bring forth to someone that is just so lost in what they're losing, but give them moments of peace and happiness and joy. Remember, these are aspects of living, which is finding funny things and stupid and stupid or sad things. If we focus on looking for those things, we can bring some kind of laughter, some kind of joy to even the most tragic, or maybe it's not tragic, it's just really sad. And so these create new stories. That creates a legacy and how you deal with it, right? So, stories. If you're thinking of any stories about someone that you have, it isn't someone that you love and they're no longer here, right? Stories in the chat. And talking about the impact of just they called them unexamined physician feelings. Like I said earlier, sometimes doctors, just like they are human, they may have feelings that they're not dealing with very well, and they need some self-awareness. So sometimes we're just lay people or a death doula, but as a lay person, it's okay for you to pull a professional side, pull a professional aside and say, I noticed this. And just take a step back and help them take a step back, but not in front of people. Okay. And help them take time out to really reflect on what you said, whatever you noticed. And that is a good kind thing to do, because these people are helping so many people move through this difficult time. And so the gift that you give is you're giving that doctor or nurse, uh, anyone around them, you're giving them the gift of grace by pulling them aside and say, I noticed this. And it just helps them to reflect more, and just be better. You know, we all need someone kind maybe to point things out to us so we can be better and implement some coping strategies, because even the health professionals learn coping strategies to deal with death and dying. And they need reminders, because you're deep in the hole, you know, a lot all the time. We don't realize, because when we're in an event, we forget that there's people that are in our vicinity that are dealing with event after event after event after event. And so for them, they sometimes will maybe turn off their emotion, or just depending on the person, will react in different ways to try to deal with their emotions. So there are different skill sets that a professional or any one of us can use. And one of the first step you could do is, there's a technique. I know it was in here. I'm sorry, my microphone. They spoke about these pages are very noisy. Oh, bathe. So dealing with anger, that was something that was similar. Bathe, B-A-T-H-E. So B is listen to what's the background. You want to validate B. So that's the A, sorry, affect, which is to validate what it is, what that's bringing up for you. T is troubles. You want to explore the fear. So whether you're a layperson or a doctor, you can just take a step back and say, well, where's that coming from? Why is it freaking me out? H is for handling, which is understanding, and then positive action to reduce the fear. And E is empathy. All right. You want to show empathy and concern. So this is mostly bathe is used, that acronym is used for more of like a layperson. But even as a doctor, there's a version of the same thing because these are coping strategies to deal with when something really triggers you, freaks you out. So these are steps to just kind of self-monitor, have some self-reflection, and then say, okay, how can I do this in a better way? All right. So that's why I say if you use your humanity as a tool and take maybe a professional side and say, dude, I think, this is what I'm seeing. And I'm not judging you, but you may want to take a look at this, and be very kind about it. Because we need these medical professionals around us, and for them to feel like they can lean on someone. So yes, you call them aside, let them know what you noticed, and then what that doctor or professional can do is say, oof, yeah, maybe I did handle that not very well. I could have handled it a different way. And then it gives them the opportunity and the awareness to contact a colleague so that then they can say, okay, this is what happened. This is what I was told. Do you think you know, how do you think I could have handled this better or whatever? And just go back and forth. I know even when I was a Stephen minister, we would have supervision groups where we would come together and we would talk about our own feelings and get feedback from the others. And it wasn't about the person; it was about the person that we were meeting with weekly. This was more about us, like what was triggering us as helpers, um, to walk along someone who's going through grief, to make, give us a checkpoint, make sure you know we were in touch with our own feelings, and not look to fix anything for anyone, but just be a witness to others as they process and go through things and grow. They also spoke about a good death. All right. The Institute of Medicine definition of a good death, I'll read this, is a good death is one that is free from avoidable distress and suffering for patients, family, and caregivers. In general, accord with the patient's and the family's wishes, and reasonably consistent with clinical, cultural, and ethical standards. This is a good death in the medical definition. Clients, what they really want are dignity. They want family present. They don't want to be a burden on others. They want to be free from pain and suffering and to die at home. To die at home takes all of these things, really need the pre-planning. That is why we are here, because if we pre-plan before we're in a traumatic state, then we know how to handle things, what could come up, what things look like, and not retreat, but just open the throttle and move forward and being there in a strong way. So you can be that right-hand person for someone, for your neighbor, for your loved one. Um, but if we think we're just going to leave it till later, let someone else, or wait till they're in the hospital, then we've just waited too late, and we are creating and allowing something that really didn't need to be. That's like going on vacation. You're like, okay, I'm going to plan for this vacation. Oh, there's so many things we're going to do, but then not planning for the flight home. I mean, how do you not prepare for the flight back? And, on some level, if you don't prepare for the ride back, whose fault is that? So, and that stress that comes along with it. So what we can do is we can create a patient-centered environment Again, this is just planning, and reflect the language of the person or the family that this whole process takes on. You don't want to use your own way or mode of transportation if that's not what's comfortable for the person that you're caring for, right? Um, and you want to educate everyone in the process. This is also why I talk about bringing this into the workplace, because um, the more people in the community that understand, the more we can, share with each other. Like we hear from our neighbor, maybe at the copier, that someone's going through something where they're losing their parent and they don't know what to do or what that looks like, or they're frustrated. You can be there to offer help and take that stress level down a little bit, because we know in the workplace it reverberates everywhere. And excuse me, we also, because we have more people that work from home, people are left alone and lonely to suffer. They talk about loneliness and what that looks like. Well, being alone at home, working from home, where you have someone who's important to you in your life dying and you don't have anyone around you, I think in one respect you say, good, I don't really want to be seen because I feel like crap. But it also is a place that reeks of loneliness. I mean, there's no need for that. There's no need for that. And that's undue stress. So you can be caring by just being aware and educated. So then you can offer some guidance and help them, know what's next. And you can handle difficult questions in a much more graceful way for that individual to handle the situation of helping their loved one have a dignified and understood death and end of life and end of ride, right? Um, yeah, so that's what we went through. We went through just what it looks like in this module, what it looks like for physically for someone's body, the changes in the body, the pain aspect, the different medications, the different levels of pain management. You don't want things to get really painful before you try to address it. And self-awareness of not only you that are caring for the person that's dying, but the professionals around the person that's dying. We all want to be human for each other and to help each other to deal with these stresses, because we need people. We need these medical professionals in our lives, and we need to see them have self-care. All right. Earlier at the beginning, I spoke about this being Women's Health Month. So not only for the women that are doing a lot of this work, but the doctors and the professionals and the nurses that are doing a lot of this work. We want to help them stay healthy as well, mentally, physically. We know we also have a lot of shortages in the medical and caregiving arena. So we want to praise them and give them human compassion, and then you'll get it back when it's your time as well too. So we need each other, and let's stay kind and respectful and care about everyone's well-being, not just women and not just men, but professionals that work around the end of life arena. And I think just all these coping strategies too that they're very helpful for all of us to learn. There are things that you don't grow up, you don't learn it in school, which is kind of funny when you think about it. Earlier, I had said we never learned about finance. We have to learn later in life. It would have been helpful to learn earlier in life. Well, coping skills is another thing. That would have been a little nice for that to have been taught to people, because then we can recognize certain things, and not see each other so differently. Just that people people work and function differently. So it's not just that they're different; they just they function differently. They have a different program. So I think it's a very helpful and kind and graceful way to look at our differences and how we think and the different parts of who we are as a community. There is no right and wrong. There's just different. Um, it's like different parts of the body, right? From the hands to the arms to the feet and the legs to the tiniest cells that are in our bodies and the differences in them. It's like, wow, it's really amazing when we think about how much really goes into one human being, one person, one soul. And you magnetize that and you say, wow, we need our differences, but they are not um, there's no one rules. So hopefully this week you will try to be there for others in your community and help educate them in this experience of the last ride. So no one is alone on their last ride. And today is the 5th. So on the 8th, which is this Friday, I'm not having this series on Friday, but what I am having on Friday, which is International Women's, I think, Day it is, right? It is International Women's Day. So I need to ride my motorcycle. Okay, it's National Motorcycle Riding Day too. It's always on the same day. I'm going to have a gentleman. His name is Lawrence Cassini. And Lawrence he's a really cool guy. He partners up with a lot of healthcare professionals who believe in prevention in the healthcare arena. So kind of keeping your engine clean in the first place to hopefully you run smoothly. It begins at the beginning from how you intake, how you think. He has he has the most interesting life and he has lived a very long life. And I really appreciate his stories. So join us here on Friday at 11 a.m. and we will hear about his story. It's a story about him and his father and what he went through to care for his father at end of life. And we'll hear some really great stories about his life in general. He always has wonderful ones. So I'm going to put out an invite for that on Friday. And just remember, whether you're looking to prepare yourself or someone else, these sessions are so important to help others ride with more clarity and comfort and this most challenging journey. So contact me if you or your group could use some of this education in your next conference or summit to spread the awareness of how early planning of your last ride and the lives of others can alleviate a lot of stress, confusion, and allow a legacy of peace, love, and respect. Until Friday and my next module next Tuesday at 2 o'clock. Peace out. Enjoy the day. Bye-bye.